Hi, my name is Willow Myers. My partner is Avery Gorman, and this is our BioBlitz presentation. To start, I want to talk about my personal experience. In my opinion, the hardest to find and to identify were the vertebrates and the invertebrates. Specifically, I had a really hard time identifying birds because they obviously move around a lot. They're kind of jumpy. My advice to anyone would to be to take as many pictures as possible at as many angles as possible. That way, you can have a really good idea as to what you're looking at and a lot of frame of reference so you can really be sure of what the organism is. And then in my opinion, the easiest to identify were the plants, both flowering and non-flowering, as well as the fungi, for the exact opposite reason as to why it was hard to identify the other ones. They sit still, you can look at them, and you can really take your time. The invertebrate we chose was the monarch butterfly. um, that it gets its energy from nectar. In its caterpillar stage, it feeds exclusively on milkweed. This nectar provides carbohydrates, which is really important for them as they migrate. Um, Whenever they are adults, their bright colors um, make them, it's obvious to predators that they are toxic. But also as caterpillars, they are toxic. Milkweed itself has toxins in it, but they develop um, um, a resistance to it. They're able to eat it and keep predators away.
Okay, and for our non-flowering plant, I use the Seek app that we talked about in class to identify an Atlas cedar tree. And like all trees and plants, the Atlas cedar tree uses photosynthesis to produce its own energy through absorbing sunlight and carbon dioxide and water and other nutrients from the soil. The Atlas cedar tree is able to produce sugars and sustain itself. And it also produces oxygen, which is crucial to our human survival, which was like for the human benefits. And adaptations it has to the environment. This tree has like a bunch of water conserving adaptations to help it thrive in kind of dry and cold places, which is like here obviously. And the most prominent of this is the needle, like the leaves are like needle shaped and they have this waxy coating on them that kind of like slows down the evaporation of water when it lands on its leaves and gives the tree more time to like absorb the water as opposed to it landing on the leaves and it evaporating in the sun right away, and the tree can't really get all the benefits of that. And then the Atlas cedar tree and trees in general are important to human existence because they not only produce the oxygen we need to breathe, but also take in carbon dioxide and are actively reducing the overall amount of greenhouse gases trapped in the atmosphere. And obviously, there's a huge problem we face today, global warming, and this kind of helps that. So, and then an interesting fact that about these trees is that they have a lifespan of around 900 years.
So for a vertebrate, we just decided to use the eastern gray squirrel. I also used the Seek app to identify this organism. They're primarily herbivores, and they occasionally consume animal-based foods, but they primarily eat plant material, meaning nuts, seeds, berries, fruits. In the fall, they gather and store their food for winter. They possess a strong spatial memory, so they can recover this food in the winter. Um, but a really important part that they provide to the environment is with the dispersing of these seeds. Not all of these seeds are going to get eaten in the winter, which causes the plants to get spread. Um, when they bury the nuts, they may not get eaten. Their food catching behavior influence plants distribution. By interacting with their physical environment, they help with both the ecosystem while ensuring their own survival. This is also how they help the humans through the forest regeneration. Very similar to how Avery was talking about with greenhouse gases. With more plants, it'll help with that global warming. And an interesting fact about these is they communicate with both postures and sounds. They use their tail movements, such as rapid flicking, to alarm other squirrels of danger, and their posture to warn other squirrels of predator. Their sense of smell is really important for reproduction. The male squirrels can use their sense of smell to detect female squirrels, and then stress levels, very similar to the posture. They can smell those stress levels in order to help them sense predators in the area.
And then for the fungi, I identified with the CCAP, I identified these brittle stem mushrooms, and I also looked up some brittle stem mushrooms on Google to reference and make sure that this was the right one because I know there are a lot of types that look very similar. So these mushrooms, like a lot of other mushrooms that we're talking about in class right now, reproduce through the dispersion of spores. And once these spores are produced and find a suitable environment, they begin to grow into mycelium, and these mycelium grow into fruiting bodies, which is like the big part that you see like above the ground. And these fungi interact with various organisms in their environments. They often will grow at you'll like often see them grow at the base of trees because they're mainly decomposers. So having access to like this organic matter like falling off the tree like leaves and wood and having this to absorb is crucial for them. And this interaction between the tree and the mushrooms allows them to have like access to all the nutrients and stuff like that. And these mushrooms have very little direct benefit to us as humans, but they do play a crucial role in promoting soil health, which in turn promotes healthy plant life, which we obviously depend on for things like air quality and food. So they are important in the long run. And an interesting quality of these mushrooms is that they tend to be extremely fragile, hence the name, and they crumble with like the smallest touch. So
Okay, so for flowering plants, we have the calico aster. Similarly to many plants, it uses photosynthesis for energy acquisition. The chlorophyll, also known as the green pigment in their leaves, uh, captures the sunlight, allowing the plant to convert the carbon dioxide and water into glucose. This not only sustains the plant life, but it helps grow its resilience to its environment. It also relies on a strong root system to absorb water and nutrients from the soil, um, ensuring that it has the nutrients to survive. It's really fascinating. It's that how adaptable it is. You can find it in a lot of different areas, such as woodlands, meadows, prairies, roadsides. In this picture that I took, I found it right beside a creek. It can live in high light, low light. It plays a crucial role to its ecosystem by providing nectar for pollinators like bees and butterflies during the summer and fall. In doing so, it not only supports the pollinators population, but also enhances biodiversity and ecosystem sustainability. These pollinators indirectly support humans by helping with crop growth.
okay, and then for part two, our future research proposal, my main question was centered around oops, sorry. My main question was centered around the monarch butterflies that Willow discussed in the beginning. And the main question that I came up with was, does increasing deforestation affect monarch butterfly migration patterns? So stuff like increased like suburban areas and urban areas coming up in places that obviously used to be prominently woods. Does this impact how monarch butterflies can migrate over with the seasons? And then my hypothesis question was, if loss of habitat and increase of man-made structures disrupt migration routes, then butterflies flying through these areas will show disrupted migration patterns. And then for the part two of that, I found this figure from a literary article that was mostly about their main question was, does rising global temperatures affect monarch migration patterns? But the lines in this figure are showing typical ones, so I figured the same like typical like control routes would be great to use for our question as well. So, and then moving on to my future research proposal. So, the experiment outline I discussed basically just consisted of placing like GPS trackers and technology and stuff like that on these butterflies, which obviously they would need to be very lightweight. And this could help us determine if like deforestation and increased suburbanization have affected monarch migration, because by tracking their locations as they migrate, we will be able to see when and where they deviated from typical patterns, as we saw in the top figure, and if these deviations occurred in areas of increased urbanization, like cities and stuff like that. And we could also track like the butterflies on rural routes and determine if they stayed on the route through these areas as well. And yeah, that was it.
Thank you.
Thank you.